Hey everyone, music about to stop abruptly. So, sorry if there's a bit of a delay there. So, this is Michael with CDSoundMaster, cdsoundmaster.com. Thank you so much for joining and working out the technical kinks as we go along. But there I am in the bottom right corner. You can see me sporting my Monumental Audio t shirt. So, okay, I can hear that the sound is in fact working on my sidecar over here. So, I'm going to turn it off so it doesn't distract me. So, yeah, this is fun. This is long overdue, and from the emails that have come in and the friends that we've been talking to for a while, definitely long overdue. So it is time. So I've played around with a few visuals here. We're more doing a audio podcast with distracting things on the screen than anything else right now, and I'll try to keep a good eye on the chat on YouTube, and there's also the Facebook thing going on, but I didn't get a chance to turn the sound off, so I may not be the most interesting watch party of watch parties on the Facebook end of things. And it should be streaming on Periscope if you're a Twitterizer and you're into sort of, the tweeting type stuff. So, howdy. Thank you so much for joining. The purpose of this is just kind of reaching out and let you know where I have been, kind of where I'm coming from, where I've been, what I'm working on right now, and what the plan is from here forward. So I am actually going to try to pull Facebook up on the side. So many people are there. Okay, trying to reach to stretch on the sidecar. Very interesting. All right, so starting with the, where are you coming from side of things. Yeah, I'm going to have to log into Facebook on the side. I'm going to stop distracting myself. In fact, fun visuals. Yep, I'm still there. Okay, spinning speaker. All right, that's kind of like the visual equivalent of a fidget spinner. So just a little about who I am, where I come from, for those who have not been around for the past decade or are just kind of new to some of the audio software stuff I've been involved in. Really, I'm not going to do a whole history of, but in the late 90s, the mastering mentor that I learned a lot of things from kind of gave me his seal of approval on what I had learned from him for doing audio mastering. And it was in that time where it was not really a known thing, let alone a cool thing, to try to be an independent record label. Independent kind of meant like you tried all other options kind of thing. But, we had gone the route of being an independent project studio and several bands that I was working with together, working all odd hours while going to school to buy the next important piece of gear, reading Mix magazine, and all of those fun things. But yeah, into the late 90s, went into mastering when it was a very exclusive kind of thing and you really needed to pick it up from somebody who knew what they were doing. So that's what I did. And once I kind of had a seal of approval from the person that I learned from, it was all about CDs in that day, as you can imagine. The digital era we had a very certain understanding that digital had a ways to go. But the profound difference that we were seeing is that there was a stable medium for the first time. And not long after we got used to the fact that you could make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy and it still sounded like the original, we were also realizing that digital was missing something from the very front end of that process. And most of the studios were still pretty much okay because they were still pressing to tape, even though they didn't have to. But it's amazing how you'd have multi-million-dollar facilities, and the last item in their chain suddenly was a $900 DAT machine. And that's literally how it went. Overnight, all of the Otaris and Studers and you name it were being replaced with, Panasonic DAT machines. And, it was great in the sense that digital correction made it to where you weren't really losing the audio in the process, which is pretty cool. But on the flip side of that, you're missing that last stage of tape that actually has something to do with the sound. So, yeah, kind of a big deal. But, yeah, in those days, in order to master your own stuff, you'd spend $500 for the software, and about $550 for a high accuracy reading CD recorder, top of the line gear, and $12 for an individual CD that was coded for protection. And then, if you did 1,000 CDs or more when you sent it to the plant, then you would not have to pay $100 for the glass master. So that's, the first kind of entrance into that. I worked from basically transferring 1/4-inch and 1/2-inch reels over to DATs. And then, the DATs would end up on a CD. The CD would end up on a glass master. Or, you had your PCM 1630, which is kind of where we started with as well. So anyway, all that stuff. Going into the early 2000s, I was doing a lot of independent mastering work, some production. Had a really great jazz Sinatra-style singer that I was working on producing, and a really great hip-hop group that we were good friends with. And for a little while, my visual art started taking hold, and worked on that a little bit more predominantly. Still wanting to continue the music stuff forward. And would start to, meet other people involved in the software side of things with these ideas that I had about a signal chain and being able to process things not just by, sticking a plugin in a location or, in a multi-track, but actually, looking at, what have we lost over the past 5, 6, 7 years of recording, going less and less analog and more digital. And, everybody understood that digital, we had bridged one gap by going from 16-bit to 20-bit and then truncating, taking, the levels to learn how to get rid of aliasing distortion, and bring things back down to a 16-bit for the CD. So things were improving there a little bit. The frequency range, we were doing the debates of 48K versus 44.1, and it's amazing how that really stuck until about 2008. Suddenly everybody said, should it be 96 or 88? And I think that's when computers were fast enough not to glitch while you were trying to work. That's kind of how that whole thing went. But yeah, in the early 2000s, wanting to keep things rolling, but doing, 12, 13 hours a day of a visual art thing. If you didn't know that I was a visual artist, go to michaelangelart.com, and you'll love it or you'll hate it. Looking for a strong response. Oh, hey, thank you, Hope-Filled Spirit. I appreciate it. Looking at the live chat on YouTube, so I don't sound like I'm just very random. So, yeah, in the quest for looking for people that recognize the same thing that I thought was missing from the first wave of plugins, not a slight against waves. I think you guys have done great. Met Giancarlo, who would go on to be Acoustica Audio. And we did a little bit of beta testing, beta tested for Wave Arts and a couple of others in the midst of that. But the thing that was cool about what Giancarlo was doing is he was trying to make something immediate that could be like what we thought of in the 80s and early to late 90s as a sampler for everything else. Why not have a sampler for hardware, for effects? And so that's kind of what he was thinking. The good side of that being that it could be instantaneous if you want to print an idea and go. And my thought was I want to print the responsive signal chains or recreate them based on the audio. And, on the downside of that is memory usage and trying to manage resources to get the best sound with the least impact. And then the other things out there were basically algorithmic, and how do you randomize things that are random in nature, but they're not really random. They're patterns that repeat with fluctuation, so they're not stagnant. They're not, just snap images of sound. So after a lot of beta testing, got really interested in trying to translate what I would like to code myself, kind of a proprietary process that I had already been bringing back to my mixes to make sure that analog was there absolutely and completely, that could translate into something that would work with what would become Nebula. So lots of testing, lots of becoming friends. There was an early forum that one of the friends of the group and first testers had made, so we got to chatting there a lot, and KVR. And the different forms, the Acustica form for sure. And so decided that we'd be the first to develop a commercial software for the Nebula platform, and that was kind of cool. So, you know what? I'm just realizing that I need to send somebody a link to what I'm doing here. So, I'm going to do that real quick. He stops the story. I really am this slow at typing with my left hand reaching over the other keyboard. You would laugh. Okay. The technology of the future is here today. Okay, back to spinning speakers. You know what? I'm going to change up the visuals. Here's some shameless self-promotion. So, yeah, getting more and more into the software. It was very nerve-wracking to try to convey a process that didn't really exist right then. You had an EQ plugin, or you had a compressor plugin, or you had, other utility type plugins, but you didn't have anything that was bringing all the different elements together. And so people were kind of unanimously saying it still doesn't sound like analog. It still doesn't sound like analog. And rightfully so. It wasn't really designed to be able to do that yet. So RASS, Retro Analog Studio Suite, was the first commercial release for Nebula, and sitting back and waiting to see what people's reaction was going to be. Very nerve-wracking, but the response was absolutely amazing, and we realized that there was a lot of a need for that kind of thing. And the thing that excited me was more and more real producers and people just getting into the field were saying, gosh, I was wondering when somebody was going to do this kind of thing. Signal chain, the whole path is the sound, not just one item or two items. So, then I looked into, I'm a mastering guy, and the mastering world is starting to transition into 88 and 96, but they really don't know some of the tricks to getting things back down to 44.1 without losing a lot of the quality. And sometimes the translation is better if you don't do it at all. So I used my own process to create a set of mastering filters that were made specifically to take advantage of the best of the sound, all the way to the end of the band spectrum, all the way down to 20, all the way up to 20K, and to use that kind of room of the 2K above that to simulate what you get with 48K, and giving you really good notch filtering and all of these different things. And then thought in terms of the producer packs, the idea with that early on was to help people kind of set up their sessions for things that would sound good, and kind of shorten the process for them. So going on from there, bringing all the different, higher end gear that a lot of the people had either never even worked with, didn't have an opportunity to do so. All that kind of stuff. Yes. So anyway, in the midst of all these things, we had set up CDSoundMaster.com as a place for my mastering work, and to just kind of try to archive work that I had done, and to let people know that I was around. And this was in the time of, soon to come would be iTunes, and it was the death of MP3.com, and it was the birth of some of the other things. And I need to check one more thing in the background real quick, so give me just 1 second. Okay, I apologize for the delay. Had to concentrate on something and didn't want to try to do both things at the same time. So very fun. So yeah, in the midst of the process of doing the beta testing and starting these programs, had not even started to think of branding what the software alone was going to be called. But people were already calling me, CDS, CDSM, CDSoundMaster releasing stuff, So I just kind of used links on my website that was meant to be for the mastering stuff to send people their downloads for the software. And I was doing some sample libraries, some professional, some personal. Oh, hey, Pyro. Sweet. It's good to see you, man. Looking at the chat on YouTube. So if you're on Facebook and you're confused, I'm talking to one of the chat people. Yeah, he's actually owned some of my artworks. That's really cool. You know what? I am going to try to sign into this thing over here for Facebook. Please tell me I got the password right the first time. I don't want to try typing that again. Okay. Alright, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything important in the other place while I'm at this place. Very cool. So yeah, it's funny, it didn't take long at all for the CD and CDS to be an antiquated thing. Mastering has continued to be mastering. It's just as important. Sound is important. But in walks the age of, cheap and do-it-yourself mastering. And now we even have, auto button, upload your recording and get a master. And, unfortunately, fewer people in the mix. We'd like to see more people in the process. Don't you think? I do. I think so. Oh yeah, check it out. There's Mitch. Hey Mitch! Checking out the Facebook stuff now. My last DAT machine died in a basement flood. This week! Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I know I've got things that I never transferred off of DAT that I just wish that I could get back into, but they've deteriorated. And I have actually had a chance to test the first 20 years of some of these CDs now. Let's see, yeah, more than 20 years now. And some of the really good ones have failed. I was very surprised, but yeah, CDs have not all held up to what they're supposed to. So Eric, it's so good to see you. This is great. Yeah, this is awesome. You guys are who this is for. So if you're terribly bored, then I'm just basically here to punish you. But cool, techno. War Dog. Fantastic. Yes, War Dog is absolutely right. I said nothing beats the human ear for mastering, and let's hope that nothing does. I mean, we're entering a crazy era of technology where we'll be reconstructing, deconstructing the brain, and using AI to replace a lot of different areas of intellectual property and stuff. I'm absolutely certain that people are going to be questioning whether it's still considered talent when you're going directly from the brain to the final productions on things without having to play anything. Just think your ideas and it'll record it down, etc., etc. Crazy stuff. But I think that there'll always be, well, always, at least for the next 20 years, there'll be a curiosity for what people do if they labor through the tough stuff that leads to all the challenges in playing, the challenges of doing. There'll always be an interesting in the organic, incredibly flawed human experience of all this stuff. So yeah, anyway, by the time we were doing NiceEQ and the Neve and all those fun things, we were pretty much, locked in with the CDSoundMaster. I was actually continuing to do some mastering, but spending a lot more time with the beta testing and releasing programs for Nebula. And then Aqua came along, was happy to test that and successfully start launching stuff there. And as time went on, we grew the community, helped to grow the beta testing group, and because it was starting to become a thing, the infamous R2R has uh, it's one of the things that kind of reached beyond our little community over time, and kind of some of the actual other 97% of the audio world that hadn't heard of Nebula was starting to maybe hear a little bit about R2R. We did somebody did a blind listening test with R2R, and when Universal Audio finally came out with their Studer, and we won the blind listening test, so they did it again on a different site, and a completely different group won the blind listening test again. So that was kind of fun. That got us in Sound on Sound, and Music Radar did a thing, and Bedroom Producers became our very good friends. They're awesome. And so throughout that process, now it's actually kind of like, wishing that I could actually use the bigger audio name, Monumental Audio, for kind of an umbrella to everything that I was working on. So that's slowly been what's happening on the side. But the comments that I get from people writing in often, the amount of, it would have to be in the thousands of conversations, really fun conversations, email and forum and other, but mostly email, of people who are just now learning how to get into this stuff. Some of the people are younger, so they actually never had to deal with analog. So their first studios, went from, oh man, it was so expensive, I had to spend $1,000 on a laptop, to where it's now $200 on a laptop. You can do the same thing. You can fit a $100,000 studio with free plugins and a laptop, and it's unbelievable how close to the quality of the sound it could get. Even the really good audio interfaces hadn't come down to where, you really can buy something that's 80% of the way there for about $100. It was kind of crazy times. But everybody, we have so many people that were not just curious about the software, they were curious about how to use software. Didn't necessarily have a mentor, didn't have anybody that was really giving them helpful or fair answers. The people that really do know stuff that are on forums oftentimes want to make sure that that they know what they know. And not necessarily wanting to be helpful to the beginners. And unfortunately, the really beginner-friendly forums often would be, I write words, can you make music? So, somewhere in between that intro stage and the, when we say, like, I want to get serious about this, but I don't know where to start. Some people were probably surprised that somebody selling software would say, if you are limited in budget, you don't have to have one of everything. So let me understand the kind of music that you're doing, and I'll tell you the ones that would probably work best for what you're trying to do. And, that builds loyalty. And that's the thing, is that's how I would. Can you imagine if you, wrote in Universal Audio or wrote into Waves and said, I'm trying to do, this, real bass grunge meets fusion album, and I've only got $300. Which of your plugins should I get? And, the answer would probably, be like $300 now, $300 later, and $300 again. And, yeah, I would have been blown away if that was my first software experience to really reach somebody that was willing to answer those kind of questions. And so most of us, we do want one of everything, but may not be able to, every time there's a $4,000 compressor or EQ, you don't want to have to choose between a mortgage and a car and the next piece of hardware. And at the same time, you don't want a $100 or $200 piece of audio software to just be fooling you into thinking that you've got what you wanted. So, we were pretty serious about that stuff. I hope you don't mind the eye candy. I was kind of trying to think of what would be interesting to run while having this conversation. So hopefully that's fun there. Yeah, cool stuff. So, moving forward into, things have been very successful with the software for a while. But, as things grow, the group grows, the number of developers growing. Really, the idea was, that you pay your dues helping to beta test, and then you may be given the honor to create something that you could sell. And eventually we would be looking at whether those things would sell directly from Acoustica, or whether some facet it would remain independent on people's websites, etc. But, my perspective on this is that a few other really good developers came out of that period of time. But it became, for the first time, kind of like a out there, it was still a community, and internally things were getting a little bit, there's a little bit of infighting going on. And myself and actually a couple of the people that are now beta testing um, our own software were very instrumental in helping to kind of bring that part of the community back together, because there was a flood of people trying to cash in on a little bit of the popularity of Nebula at that time and R2R in that time. So interesting stuff, but where it comes, basically you kind of see the writing on the wall where things are starting to grow and you want to try to do what is the next level stuff going to be. And at one point in time, we were negotiating with Isotope to do something, and very, very, very cool people. It's kind of funny whenever you're discussing things with somebody, and like every single person is, got a master's in, MIT this and rocket science that. Pretty amazing people. Made really good friends with the guys at Nerve Audio and worked on a little bit of development there. But just like the rest of us, the extremely busy people. And life gets in the way, and time continues moving forward, and so we've been incredibly busy with a lot of different things. A lot of the development that has happened behind the scenes are things that you just haven't really seen out there, and so we know we're busy, but you haven't really seen us. So, just love the interaction, dealing directly with customers. And a lot of the Q&A has told me that there's thousands of people out there. And if I know thousands, then there might be hundreds of thousands, because we're still, a relatively small, group of people that really need guidance in knowing how to mix, knowing how to use the tools that they want to have. And so, have all these private conversations. My idea was, well, it would be great if when I have helped somebody through email, if that was actually helping somebody else, and wanted to get more into doing tutorials. Ironically, one of my very early attempts at doing videos, I just, I had, no time and no idea about video editing the way that I do with audio. Just use the, the cheapest free thing that comes with Windows to make a video about how to use the stuff with drums and showing a before and after. That's actually hilarious. What's on the screen right now is very similar to, what the video was like at that point. But it went viral, and it was in a time where nobody was doing this stuff. There were no, if you try to find anything past 8 years on YouTube that goes into this stuff, it's very, 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 very rare. Universal Audio wasn't really demonstrating their stuff. What was it? Full Sail and all these different, retail resellers. The idea of loading up YouTube with teach-a-thon type stuff just hadn't really come into its own. So I wish that I had known back in 2007, 2008 what I know now, and had just really pounded out all of the tutorial stuff back then. But I had the idea of starting Fix-a-Tune, and here's the thinking behind this: is that first of all, I thought it was a fun name. Feeling blue, are you? Do you need a fix for your tune? Okay, whatever the slogan is on there. But, Fix-a-Tune is just a short, easy thing to type in, kind of create an atmosphere for helping people learn how to do this stuff. And people continue to write me directly via email and not really want to ask the same things publicly, and I understand that. But also, my thinking with Fix-a-Tune was that I didn't want people to think that the only reason I was there is to sell you stuff. And, for people that still don't know who we are, CDSoundMaster.com, they're going to see CD and be like, CD? And so, I wanted to brand the CDS as being classically defined sound, CDS. So CDSoundMaster. It's the mastering of classically defined sound. Perfect. But I didn't want people to feel like all of this was just about branding and just trying to sell the software. I am much more interested in building a community, and, the end result will come. If somebody finds value in mine versus something else, that's fine. There's, a couple of 100,000 people that actively spend money on this stuff out of the 10 million that are looking for it for free. And out of that group, somewhere between those two, we'd love to have about 10 to 15% of them casually buying software while actively learning how to do really cool recordings, because this world needs more cool music, right? Absolutely. So that's the whole idea behind that. The thing is that when you're still kind of growing the same group of people, you want your own music and eventually the software line to be under Monumental Audio. Go to monumentalaudio.com. You can kind of see what I set up over there. But all this stuff, fixed tune for the tutorials, Monumental Audio for my own music, and also these other things, and CDSoundMaster, which, people sometimes still associate with being the CDs, mastering CDs, isn't that so circa, 90s? All these different things together, there's a little bit of burnout involved there, and I'll go into the hardware stuff later. But there's just so many different things going on, and I was just constantly trying to launch the tutorial side of thing and see, where are we going to build the community? How are we going to build the community? Meanwhile, we're still spending a good many hours of answering emails directly and teaching people how to do stuff. And of course, I would get a lot of technical Acoustica questions as well, which I kind of feel honored to be able to answer on their behalf. Giancarlo is a very busy dude, and he's been programming, basically breathing and programming since 2003. So, doesn't come up for air much. So anyway, that's kind of a big picture of what's been going on and what I've been doing lately. There have been, it's a little bit of a bummer, some of the things that haven't happened with the proprietary technology. A lot of you guys are big fans of the VTM M2, VTMC M2, and the BRTC M2. The I don't know if you know the X2. It's written in there somewhere if you read things. But there's Michael Heiler and Michael Angel. There's two M's. So VTM, Vintage Tape Machine. M2 means it's our two Michaels. That's what that is for. So, and of course, because we had the M2, immediately somebody else came along with VTM after us that was not as good. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. So in that stage, yeah, we did some nice stuff. We didn't develop quite as fast as we really need to do in that time, but it's been a really fun partnership, and hopefully those will stick around. And the Nerve Audio thing, just really amazing guys, and we definitely worked through some of the proprietary stuff that has been in my brain since the very beginning, and seeing that it could work in reality, but just everybody's very, very busy. So that's how these kind of things go. So, in the future, what I definitely want to be doing is to take advantage of the things that have already worked in the past, and to realize that everybody's not really in any kind of rush to shift over to Monumental Audio for everything. So as long as you guys know me, you know where I'm coming from, and you know that I'm proud of what I've done thus far. I'm going to go into a little bit of the technology stuff and everything and kind of back that up. But I'm going to be doing more as CDS. So this is where I am right now. This is where the process is right now. And so, I'm going to take advantage of the best aspects of the technology, what I'm familiar with, and the fact that there are some really important pieces of hardware that still haven't been translated into the audio software universe from me. And as you can tell, whenever somebody puts out a really great free version of something, and then somebody compares it to Waves, and the Waves version to the Universal Audio version, and the Universal Audio version compared to the Softtube version, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they're all absolutely hitting on the right essence of the device, but they're all absolutely different from each other. So that has to tell you that, even the devices would have variation, but the software does too. So since we are where we are right now, you know a little bit of where I came from. The realization that I'm going to be spending more time on this was testing out, needing to do some product updates and fix a few typos here and there that I'd run across on the website, fix a few dead links, and realized that the website was just really not translating well to the modern iteration of smartphones and tablets and stuff. And so, as bummer as that is, oh yes, it was. It is. It was. I did a complete rewrite of the website, and I wanted to make sure that I felt proud of it, even though, I'm still thinking in terms of, gosh, between the two, Monumental Audio is, like, to me, the quintessential name. It covers everything. But everybody knows me as CDSoundMaster, and I'm definitely not going to redo all the graphics, all of the GUI. So, just really taking pleasure in branding and rebranding, and coming to terms with, this has been, 12 years in the process. I can't believe it's been that long. And some of you have been there from the very beginning. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So what I'm going to do now is just very quickly introduce you to the new website and make sure that I'm set up here correctly. I believe I am. Everything should be working correctly. So let's try this out. And I'm actually got a delay on the sidecar, so I won't know immediately. Yeah, I'm reading War Dog's comment. Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's SCB says, heck, CDSoundMaster is back. That's awesome. Yeah, War Dog made a really good point. The hallmark of good emulated analog software is that the audio needs little to no EQ or compression to sound good. Just like recording in the analog world. CDSoundMaster nails it. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, man. That really means a lot. So here's the new CDSoundMaster.com, and it is fully responsive. It seems to work nicely with the devices, tablets, Androids, all this kind of stuff. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of create this little info block that you're going to see here. Similar to what the old site had, but it just didn't format at all. A little bit of good markup in SEO. I have noticed that just in the past 5 days, we've seen a little bump in our newsletter subscribers, so that's kind of cool. So they're already behind now. I got to send something else out again, all over. So go to the About page, and yeah, I like that picture. Okay. So we go to the VST plugins, and this right now it's the same lineup. I've reorganized things a little bit based on you guys and visually balancing things out. This had a nice balance to me. Kind of pushed the things that I hear the most about up to the top. So we're number one. We're number one. So just as an example, yeah, okay, will be not quite as obvious as you'd think. So I still have this click to PC or Mac. It's a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. So quick and easy makes it, not such a hassle. So if there's already product videos that are on there, you can try it free, buy them there, etc., etc. There's an example of that. So here's what I did for the Nebula list, so you can get around much easier. So you've got this thing where you can choose your own category, or you can let it bounce yourself, whatever you like to do. So let's say I want to check out your channel strip equalizers, the classic console EQs, that kind of stuff. So here we go. So that went right there, and then at the end of the section, it'll take me back up to the top. So that's kind of nice. So let's go to the tape machines, the most obvious Nebula library with our cool, funky 70s retro fontalicious 60s, 70s stuff. You can see the manual for the A820 and all this fun stuff. Yep. So there's those, and then this may be a surprise. I'm going to actually right-click and open it in a separate thing. So I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but this is my Monumental Audio line, and these are the sample libraries. I just absolutely love doing this stuff. It's kind of like if you're, not putting your heart and soul into, the living, breathing artist inside of you for the next album, but you really, really want to write some cool stuff, and you may not want to stick to one style. That all describes me right now, so I love doing all this, different styles of stuff, glitch and distortion and all these things. Then we have these two. I've developed these VSTIs, and I'd really like to do that more. It's tough to get a read on, how that whole different group of people will embrace me and my line. We were selling actually through distribution for a while, and it was doing well. And they restructured and are only branding their own stuff now. So we'll see if I get a home for that again. That'll be kind of nice. And the most sophisticated contact page ever to grace the internet with its presence. Got to love it. All right, so you have now seen that literally takes us current to this stuff. So I'm going to go to fancy pictures again. See, told you so. And there's me frozen in time in the bottom right corner. And yes, I did struggle with whether to go fully live with the video there, but between wondering about the graphic resources and streaming this to several points at the same time, to just being distracted, I'd much rather think about talking to you than think about whether, do I need to get my hair did, or anyway, I thought that was a good decision there. So, if you are in the market for some good software, CDSoundMaster.com. I am done pitching that stuff. So, what else has been going on? Yeah, going all the way back to the vintage tubes collection period of time. Obviously, all this stuff is inspired by the hardware, and it wouldn't make any sense if there wasn't that kind of connection to the audio world. I have a lot of friends in the hardware side of things, and some very talented engineers that I've gotten together and collaborated on some projects. The first thing that I felt that needed to exist was the Source Plus. And if there isn't just it's kind of become the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot of the audio hardware world, because I'm not going to put something out there unless it's absolutely right. And we did a very small distribution of hand-built items at a ridiculously low price. Got the sound exactly the way that it needed to be, and it does exactly what it's supposed to, but it didn't necessarily travel all the way across to Europe very safely, very well. So we were going to change the case out and do some other things, but for the small handful of people, including myself, that own their own Source Pluses, I think that they found that the sound absolutely did what it was meant to do. Hey, there's a picture of the result too. That's not what the Source Plus looks like, but we iterated the response of the tubes first at 44K and then rewrite at 96, being able to do 4 tubes, what we did for tape with R2R. And it's just kind of a passion. And my wish was, next, after basically the point of the Source Plus was be able to tune things just from the sound of the tube. Not the sound of the transformers, not the sound of anything else in the filtering, just literally get the tubes enough power, give you bias control, and give you voltage control, and be able to tune those with the input and output volume so that you're putting the stress on either end of the load. And it was, just a very smart design, very simple, 2 stages using chamber 1 and 2. And I'm still kind of thinking those terms today. So once we accomplished that, really, I wanted to go into basically 4 or 5 different real high-end things. I'm not trying to sell to the masses, but if you bought one piece of gear, this would be the one. That kind of boutique stuff. Boutique, beautiful, nice things. So found a really great guy that was building custom Neve-oriented stuff. What is it? The 1290 amp, I believe, that's involved in the 1073 and some of the 81, 84 series. They use so many different amps. We have actually simplified the process greatly. But I've collected a few different things with the Neve sound, and I've always done so on a budget. We don't have the billionaire's version of this stuff. I've been very blessed to be able to get my hands on some of the the finer individual pieces of audio gear to make this happen. But wanted to develop something that was taking the sound of the console and being able to gently soft saturate the sound, keeping it clear but just growing the size. There are very few things that do that similar to the vintage tubes in the Source Plus. It's just a different sound than the tape. But in this situation, I did want to use the sound of the transformers. I did want to be able to change the load from the input to the output transformers, and basically just kind of grow the signal. I think is it the 607? It's part of the Apex tape collection, and I'm looking to match the other one because I have like the one most perfect sounding tape path preamp tube electronics from the 607. I think it is. The 351 has some pretty close stuff, but I mean, yeah, this one is the one for sure. It just grows the sound without tapping out. It's still breathing. It's still got the peaks. Just sounds amazing. But yeah, I wanted to, do the Neve version of that, and got together with a really neat engineer, very smart, very cool guy. He was building out some local studio stuff, and we talked and we made a prototype, and it worked perfectly. We needed to get a more accurate match to the volume matching, and we were done. We were ready to ship. And for some reason, that was, the conclusion of that process. Couldn't really push it forward from there for whatever reasons. But so, the next thing, if I remember it correctly, that came along, we're actually still, I'm not sure if it's still out there or not. But two different really big projects. One of them that I'm still staying quiet about. But on the studio hardware side of things, once again, working on a all tube, all solid state, two completely separate recording or just audio paths, allowing you to bypass or change it into a dual bus. And the sound structure of it would be just absolutely amazing. It's only the stuff and the signal path that you want. We were considering whether to color things up with a more Neve kind of velvety vibe from the Transformers, or whether to go more with the, really and truly, the Jensens are the best Transformers. They just are. But sometimes they're not necessarily as interesting. You want to hear the flaws a little bit better, for lack of a better word. So, we're looking at, would probably be a $5,000 or $6,000 unit, but you're getting, two channels of anything that you record at the same time, and you're getting what would easily be like a $3,500 bus unit to boot. And it's just a flip of a switch to change from one to the other, and you've got the really the best fast solid state sounding preamp design and tube design. And once again, it would be the option of the dual stage, or you could link the two together. Absolutely brilliant design. Went through the whole process, and then, kind of at the same place, I'm kind of noticing a trend. Engineers are the actual kind of brains that it takes to do this genius kind of schematic work. Coding stuff is fairly similar, but I think the whole drive is to prove that you can do the design, and once you're there, you're not so interested in selling it. So that's kind of been my experience. But so I am still hopeful that that's going to be part of what we can do with this. Is that, there's so many thousands of people in the community that are serious about their recording stuff, and we want to provide them the one thing that nobody else would really be able to get, and it's not mass produced, off the shelf, high end stuff. Where you're going to spend $3,000 or $4,000 for the quote unquote real version of a lot of the hardware that's out there, but it's still, tried and true designs that have been out there for, they haven't really changed since the 70s. It's just the version that sounds better. But to get something that is purely, absolutely really one of the kind, you might spend a tiny bit more, but that's because we're hand making them and shipping them out. And I really, that's a passion of mine. So we're hoping that that'll work out. May or may not happen, not really sure. In the meantime, I think I counted about 7 different mastering projects in the midst of this, and a couple of really important guys from the community that I've been honored to be able to work with. And I did produce one of my own album. You heard some of the music from that in the intro. It's a guitar album. If you're interested in that, I'll send you a link. If you're really cheap, you can listen to it free on YouTube. That's okay. That's what I do. For my own, not everybody, obviously I would support you. And produced 2 different albums from a really good friend of mine. That's a kind of a famous guitar guy, and amazing faith believing dude, really cool Christian brother friend. So that's about everything that's been going on. Isn't that plenty? Really? Yes. So what's going on with CDS from here forward? Already in the process with a couple of things that were meant to go out that just got slowed down by things. Got a custom tube EQ device that I think I'm going to release soon. A couple of console items that need to go a little bit further. You probably have seen I put out for Nebula the ACC, the American Classic console, and it's a really unique unit. From that, it had a graphic EQ version. What is that? The 560, and the 550A is the standard for the ACC model. But I've also got the kind of ultimate multi-channel version of what I think of the classic API sound. We were really into op-amp swapping in the day, and I've kind of, for API, I actually like the sound of a Lundahl. So I don't feel as much the need to switch from the Jensens to the Lundahls to different things for transformers. But I do really love just how incredibly wide a range you can get in the soft to aggressive to mid-rangey, punchy nature of the 990C style op-amp. So I think that I am going to release a custom ACC that allows you to use a standard legacy, probably the 24 channel. I'll have to look at my model again, but being able to basically use it with the Melkor design, with the John Hardy 990C, and the Melkor, the John Hardy, and oh my goodness, I'm blanking out. The Brent Avrils guy that made amazing op amp. I've got that one installed. So, all right, Pyro, good to see you. Thank you so much for dropping in. Appreciate it, man. He's got to go. Avedis, Avedis. That's what it was, and I don't know that they make them anymore, so it may have just become something more collectible. So that's going to be coming soon. I am looking at a couple of the compressors. I like to either go completely custom for custom items, or do my own twist on something. I'm very picky that I'm not going to release something that has the item name if it can't be properly done. Absolutely. I want you to not be able to tell the difference between the hardware and the real thing if there's going to be a name. So, yeah, War Dog, I know. It's just like the fun of op-amp swapping is just, it's long overdue, for sure. Big time. So there are some more EQs coming, and I do think that I want to do a couple more things in the producer pack line, because I think that even advanced users can benefit from having something set up for particular song styles. And what I would put together is maybe a different way of looking at things than what you would find from some of the other, software developers who just focus on that. And, just making, something for drums, something for bass, something for guitar, something for vocals, something for songwriter styles, EDM, some fun different sounding stuff. And, very picky on the compressor side of things. I'm looking to re-release my wonderful Green Series, what is it, 60s or 70s All-Tech. Most people aren't aware that I had actually done that one, but I want to go back through and make sure that I'm using everything to the best of my abilities before re-releasing that. So an awesome All-Tech graphic that's got, the big giant transformers on the backs. They're an optional feature for that EQ series, but people are spending $300 and $400 just for the transformers that I've got on the back of this beautiful EQ. So I may be releasing that guy. And I will be taking the time to add to the GUI Aqua releases. There are some people that they're not really interested in the technology and the lack of interface for the Nebula stuff. Obviously the best bargain and the absolute sound is there for everything Nebula. But there's some people that are only thinking in terms of independent VST plugins. So there will be more from the Cooltech line, and I think the custom American Classic Console channel is going to happen, and we'll see what else. So I think that covers stuff. I am very interested in hearing from you guys on your thoughts on the hardware side of things too, because just those things ebb and flow with time. But I'm always thinking in terms of if you're going to bring something new to the industry, it might as well be something that you couldn't buy off the shelf somewhere else. So I do know some people that are doing some of the ideas that I have in mind for an 1176, maybe an LA2A, but really more than anything, just the absolute best 3D sounding. Just reach out and grab you solid state and fast, really great sounding tube stuff. So we'll see. But anyway, so that there'll be some custom shop stuff that I haven't told anybody about that are unusual EQs that just sound unbelievable. And, that's for the software side of things. And we'll just see where it goes from there. So I'm going to take a look at whatever I've missed on Facebook. I'm sure I've missed something. And how does this stuff work? I don't really know. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so I thank everybody so much for joining, and obviously this will be available if you want to send a link to somebody later on. So the next stuff coming along, I'm going to actually kind of do what I've needed to do for a while and make some of the videos to go deeper in depth with using this stuff. So just kind of, I want to come back around to kind of the point that I was making and wanting to transition from one branding to another. My thoughts with Fix-A-Tune really are that I didn't want people in the process of trying to learn stuff to feel like they were being pitched to, that I'm not just trying to sell them something. But I do think that no matter how much I've tried to launch there, so to speak, but that people really enjoy getting to know how to use them and use them properly. We'll go into all of the negative 18 dBFS stuff, all of the how to set levels, how to set up your signal chain. So now you have things like the producer packs. You have all these individual items, and the computers, fortunately, now are able to keep up with the pace. So it's not as much a concern about being able to build your own processes and the astounding changes that it can make to put things in different orders. So I'm going to be doing some more videos to just kind of cover, give you an overview of different programs, and then do some sample listening, test mixing, fun type things. And I'll just trust that you understand that I'm coming from a place where, I am definitely interested in the tutorial side of things. Don't want you to feel like, I'm only there to try to sell you something, but CDSoundMaster is the brand. People continue to kind of follow it from this side of things. So the other thing is I am going to, I'm in the process of working on it right now, but I will show you what I'm talking about here. I am working on, is this the right thing? Yeah. So I am setting up a Patreon because once again, the nature of the people that write me directly versus what I put out there. I just feel like, some people might feel like supporting a hardware thing or the next software thing, whether they buy it or not, whether they buy it later on, they want to support the process going forward. And so I appreciate that. I think that it's a good thing to set up. I think that it qualifies for that category of things because people have, offered to kind of jump in with that kind of stuff just out of their own, kind will. So supporting the development of cool things that matter in music and recording it. So I think that's about all. Thank you guys for chilling with me. And thank you for the thumbs up, of course. Make sure and subscribe on, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. Ring the bell so you get notices for stuff. And you can see the little OBS software thing pop up. So subscribe to stuff because I'll be trying to put more of these out. And if I hit on a good time of day where people are around, then it'll be nice to see you and talk and all of these good things and get a lot more of your feedback on stuff and work on tutorials. It seems to always come back around to the drums. The drums are kind of the fundamental to, you can build your bass, your guitar, your keys, your synths, your backing vocals, and your vocal off of everything. But if the drums don't have punch, what are you going to do? So a lot of the tutorial stuff, I'm just going to go through and let you hear the individual plugins running through a lot of cool sounding stuff. And I'm even willing to help do direct tutorials on some of your mixes if you're having trouble with them. And in trade, I get to use them to show people how to do stuff. So it should be fun. Thank you so much for joining, and hope to see and hear from you. CDSoundMaster.com and all that good stuff. So I'm going to use the intro thing to sign out. All right. God bless you guys. I look forward to staying in touch with all of you. Bye for now.